Generally, there's always a security risk. There's a risk. The question is it, can you avoid that risk? Can you transfer it? Can you reduce it?
So how does the incident of insecurity affect property value and rental income in an area?
Before you start implementing any kind of security infrastructure, you need to do what we call a TVL, threat and vulnerability assessment, do a risk assessment of the place. Because criminals are also very intelligent. They are trying to understand you. You need to think ahead of the criminals. They are looking at this property. Maybe there's so much value in it. If you there's in security, what we call rings of security or security in depth. When you have a building, for instance, you want to put, maybe somebody will buy a door of maybe 10 million, but his wall is a scrappy wall. Why would I go through the door when I know I can go through the windows?
Hello again. Welcome to the Thread Naija, the real deal Naija podcast, of course. And at this point, I want to tell you to just pause, click the share button, go and post it on your status, Instagram story, on that WhatsApp group where you constantly talk about real estate investment, or just anybody you want to know about real estate investment, because at Thread Naija, we are unbundling Africa's largest real estate market, and it keeps getting better and better per episode. Today, we're going to be looking at something really interesting, something that has become a deal breaker for most home seekers. And we're going to be talking about security architecture. Are there growing concerns? You know, when house owners are seeking a place to live, gone are the days when they only focus on the square footage, on, you know, the architecture and all of that. Right now, there are growing concerns on security, gated house, digital surveillance, and all of that. Today, to do justice to this topic, I have in the studio with me Mr. Emeka Dike. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you. Mr. Emeka Dike is a security and safety consultant, and of course, he's going to be telling us all that we need to know about security, about gated houses, about, you know, digital surveillance. All of that, we will be doing justice to that. Remember, we are talking about security infrastructure. Are there growing concerns? Welcome, Mr. Emeka again.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Great. Okay, so from your years in the safety and security space in real estate particularly, I want you to tell us, to what extent do security concerns influence people's choices when they want to buy or rent a space?
Thank you for that question. I think security consideration is actually the primary focus for anybody that's looking for an apartment to lease or buy, because we know that without security, there won't be any development, and security is a driving force that prompts economic activity. And you can tell from the situation in Nigeria now. Nigeria is, we have a criminality index about 7.2 or thereabout, and we are 6th in the world, and then second in Africa. So that tells you why some investors are a bit apprehensive about coming to invest in Nigeria. Being that as may, we are here in Nigeria, but we also have to make the best out of it, because there's in life, generally, there's always a security risk. There's a risk. The question is it, can you avoid that risk? Can you transfer it? Can you reduce it? So in security, you will always have risk. You always have threats. So you ask yourself, what are the measures that you put in place to mitigate those risks? So basically, security is a major concern before all the other things that drive the choice of location for anybody to stay, whether access to maybe malls or different network and all that. Is security concerns. That's actually the major thing, because if you're not safe, if you're not secured, if you don't feel safe in the environment where you live in, there's no point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so now tell us, how do the incidents of insecurity, right? Like you've said, you will not feel secure when you get a space, right? There's almost no point going home because you're not safe. So how does the incident of insecurity affect property value and rental income in an area? Okay.
Quick one. If you look at a country like Nigeria now, for instance, if I were to ask you, if you want to buy a property, let's say the value of a property is about you have 20 million as your budget, and okay, you are an investor, maybe you live abroad and you want to invest. There's a property in Lagos is 30 million, and there's another property in a place like Zamfara, it's 10 million. Which would you buy?
Leave me with Lagos, please.
Why would you do that? So you see why security will always influence your choice.
Absolutely.
Because nobody wants to stay where you don't feel secured. Because that was the ultimate goal, is to have a peaceful, conducive environment and place where you can sleep with both eyes closed, not with one eye closed. There's no point living in a mansion where you can hardly sleep. Any noise, you're waking up.
Yes.
So where's the peace? I mean, that's the whole essence of getting a place. So you have to, so you can go home and relax peacefully. So basically, security is a major consideration. It will obviously affect the value of a property. So you have places like a place in Lagos now. We have places where we used to have some millionaires. They were living in some places, but because of they've been involved in some kind of security, either they've survived a kidnapping incident, and they all moved to maybe a more secure place like Ikoyi and all that.
Okay.
So they feel secure there because one, the adequate security infrastructure in place, and also the response time for any the security agencies are there. So obviously you can't compare the value of property in a more secure environment to it. So that's why some persons, they actually have properties, their own personal houses in some outskirts of Lagos, well-built facilities, well-built houses, spent a lot of money. They're now coming down to rent in maybe around the island or more secure environment like Kejaju and all that, because they don't want to, they left that house, and even to rent the house is a challenge. So security plays a vital role in the value of a property.
Peace of mind is primary when you're...
it's key.
Okay, great. So then, do you see an uptick in the demand of property, as in gated estates, among buyers or tenants due to security concerns?
Definitely. I think if you flip through most of the pages or most of the adverts or marketing of most of the developers and real estate companies, you see part of the things that they put as the marketing tool is gated estates, perimeter fence, CCTV, and all that. Why do they put that? Because that's what would drive investors to come in.
Yes.
But then again, the question comes: really, do they really have those infrastructures in place? And if they do, was there some thoughts put into it in terms of doing some level of evaluation analysis in terms of the right thing to do?
Okay.
Because before you start implementing any kind of security infrastructure, you need to do what we call a TVL, threat and vulnerability assessment, do a risk assessment of the place. You need to understand the criminal record, a history of that area, and know what kind of, because there's no point putting let's say a very high, maybe 5 meter fence from the place where the threat is not really from maybe somebody jumping over the fence. Okay. So there are different kind of threats.
Yes, okay.
So yeah.
All right, please, I want you to just shed light briefly on that threat and vulnerability assessment.
Okay, threats basically is anybody or anything that wants to harm you.
Okay.
So and people, different threats have different motivation. They have their capability. The armed robbers or criminals, they're different. There are some that come with guns and come with knife and all that. So that they are all threats. So you have to evaluate what is their capability. Okay. If this kind of person should attack me, what is his capability? How many are they in number? Or what kind of what's their motivation? Okay, somebody coming to kidnap somebody can because he wants to kill the person, or because he wants to kill kidnapping for ransom. So the motivation is different, and their intent is different. Their capabilities, those are things you evaluate. For instance, if I can put an estate next to a community that I know is densely populated, and I know that you have a lot of, I'm sure you heard about the incident during the NSAS era. You see some estates that were breached, some where could not be breached. Some estates nobody even experienced any form of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so those are factors to put into consideration.
All right, awesome. Thank you, sir. So now, sir, in your experience, especially with developers in real estate industry, right, would you say that these developers are investing adequately in security infrastructure?
I will say yes and no, because like I said earlier, you see people put all kind of advert, maybe in their marketing schemes on maybe close CCTV cameras, surveillance systems, and all that, perimeter fence. Because in reality, when you go there, it might not be exactly what you see in their flyers.
Yeah.
Some persons and some developers, I'm sorry to say, do not put adequate detail. Like I said earlier, you need to do a lot of evaluation. Okay, where is the place? Where is the property located? If you are going to have a property situated in a place that is, like I said, densely populated, it's important that you put a very high fence so that even if intruders want to come in, it will be difficult.
Yes.
But in a place, in a community like maybe a place like Ikoyi, not exactly, because So there's also some principle, even in terms of development, that some developers do not apply. There's some security techniques that we call crime prevention through environmental design. That means you need to ensure that, like in a gated estate, you can have clear view of surveillance, access. People can, it's easy to see, people coming in and all that. And then territorial integrity. You create things like barriers, maybe short fence, because no criminal wants to be seen. No criminal wants to be caught. So you do put some measures, some safeguards that will call maybe barriers that will deter persons, because in security, what you're trying to do is, there are 34 things you try to do in this. It's called it, you're trying to deter somebody. That's you don't want to discourage the person from even want to come into commit a crime. So you want to be sure that you can detect it when the person wants to attack you or come to your place. And then, because there are also some, engineering concept to this kind of thing. Then they also want to delay the person. Let's say the person wants to come, so they can delay him enough to maybe get a response, and then ultimately deny the person access to the target, which is you, the asset, which could be yourself, your people, it could be equipment, it could be your information, it could be a lot of things.
There you have it from our experts. Some of the measures you want to put in place when setting up your security infrastructure. You want to first deter. Secondly, you want to set up measures to help detect. Thirdly, you want to delay. And finally, make sure that you deny these people access into the property that you are working on. With these 40s, I'm pretty sure that most of that covers about, say, 60% of the security. These are just primary tips.
Yeah. So those are actually principles, But in detail, for instance, I can start with, if you want to deter, what are the deterrent measures you could say? One is as simple as security guards, having a well-established security guard system in your place. One is having a very good high fence, which anybody thinking how scale through this. So the person will say, is it worth it?
Yes,
maybe when you put a high fence and you put maybe concertina wires, all those systems, or you put IDS, we call intrusion detection. It's also part of the detection. So those are the deterrence measures you put in place. You have even the mere fact that you even have you liaise with maybe a law enforcement agency, they drive through your property. Is enough deterrence. Anybody, because criminals are also very intelligent. They are trying to understand you. You need to think ahead of the criminals. They are looking at this property. Maybe there's so much value in it. And by the time they see some of these measures you put in place, security guards, you have armed men coming around, you have a very high fence, you have a well-secured gate. So the threats depend on the kind of, when you've done your threat and environmental assessment, that the kind of people that will come here are not, if all these people that normal property crimes like maybe vandalism and theft, they won't want to try it. But if it's a densely populated area, no security person, maybe you just have one, maybe malam, as they normally call it, and anybody can just scale through the fence. And so when you have that deterrence measures, have a established security presence, it will deter them. Then on the detection part, what are the measures you can put in place? We'll have ideas, what we call intrusion detection. Like you have what we call electric fence. It's actually an idea. There's all the different ways. There are infrared types, the one that motion detectors and all that you can put. So in event there's an intruder, it will activate an alarm and obviously alert your response force. Then also in terms of delay, if you there's in security what we call rings of security or security in depth. When you have a building, for instance, you want to put, maybe somebody will buy a door of maybe 10 million, but his wall is a scrappy wall. Why would I go through the door when I know I can go through the windows? So when you're having what they call in-depth security, or rings of security, you make sure that the kind of security, the kind of measures, safeguards you put on your door is the same on the wall, the same on the windows, so that even if a person wants to penetrate, because you have to look at all your access points. Access points include your doors, your windows, openings, ducts, drainages. So those are things you have to put in consideration. So when you go out and it is important that you look at all this. If you want to buy a house for your own self, first of all, you must have studied the environment, and then you look at all these measures they put in place. Even some properties you see, there's CCTV and it's not working.
All right. This is already feeling to me like a masterclass because it is really, really packed. And then watching this, as the viewer, definitely you will already have tips on why, or even if developer, you have tips on why it is very important to invest heavily in the security infrastructure, seeing that it is a deal breaker for most people. Most people will see a beautiful house, but if the security is not there, they're definitely not going to go for it. All right, sir, finally, so what role does enhanced security architecture play in making neighborhood more attractive to live in?
Thank you for that. I think I've highlighted some of the points. The thing is, security infrastructure is basic because it's for your own personal security and also for your family.
Absolutely.
For instance, if you have family, so it's very important. Like I explained, all the basic features you can have, measures, security measures you have. It's kind of gives you some level of confidence, and anybody that's going to come to that house and they realize this place, and there are places that may be far away from here, like not even within the Lekki Koi environs.
Okay.
Maybe it might be so further, but when you go in there, the level of security infrastructure there makes you feel comfortable. The only challenge you might have is your commute from wherever you're going to those kind of places. I'm sure you must have seen maybe resorts, hotels or something, hospitality centers that are built very far away from the main city. Yeah. But because you see people go there because they know that the security measures there, is tight, is watertight. So you make sure that what we call a target hardening. You make sure that it's almost impenetrable for anybody to come in. Okay. And then you also have a response force. It's not just having a property in a place, because you might underestimate your adversary, whoever the intruder is. They might be 20, you might think it's not 2 persons. It might be 20. So always anticipate the worst. And then why do you need that? Because even if you have all your security measures in place, you need to find a way to ensure that you have response from maybe government security agencies. So in that way, you also consider the commute time from wherever their base is to your property. So those are things people should also consider when buying a property. Okay, how close is this thing to even as maybe a safety matter, like the fire service, police station and all that can respond. Because you can be in the middle of nowhere, even if you have all the gadgets, try to delay them, but except you have enough delay countermeasures to hold them till like maybe another 2 hours. You understand? That's why banks are fortified. Why do you think that banks for criminals is it for them to go into the vote? Because votes, those are delay elements. That's why you notice that the banks, the votes are made of concrete walls.
Okay.
So the doors are bulletproof and heavy steel, like over maybe 400 mm thick. So because even if you come into the bank, it's difficult for you to go in. So it delays the time. So those are delay elements. So before the person tries to break, response would have come. So the same, you can apply the same for your house. There are some houses, the same thing for your cars. You can apply the same for your house. Make sure, it's difficult for anybody to come in. And sometimes people say, okay, the house is strong. Also make it as the way you're implementing all those security measures, both in the door, in the windows, in the walls. Also think of the roof, because anybody can come in, look at the drainages. So those are considerations that depending on what you want to do.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. This has been solid. Personally, I have learned a lot. With security infrastructure, you cannot be too careful. Always anticipate the worst, because anything can happen, right? Remember that at Thread Naija, the Real Deal Naija podcast, we are committed to everything real estate, helping you figure out and map out your investment journey all the way down to security, making sure that you are making the right choices at every point in time. Don't forget to subscribe. The views are more than the subscription and other engagement. Please subscribe. Remember to share. Use the hashtag thread. Let us unbundle Africa's largest real estate market. Stick with us at the Real Deal Naija podcast.